Solo board gaming night here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Ascension Tactics, the miniatures deck building game. This is just a retail edition, so I don't actually have the miniatures, but I do have the standees. I'll be using that instead. It doesn't change the way the game plays, it just changes the way it looks. But other than that, let me go ahead and give you an overhead view of the table so you get an idea of how much space it actually takes up. Now, this isn't a small game. It's not the biggest game I've played, but you will need a medium to large table to play it. The good thing is that once you have your center deck out, as well as your champions and the villain cards out, you won't have to add much more to that. But you will need a decent amount of space to play it. With that out of the way, let's get straight into the box and see what's inside. I like the art on the box of Ascension Tactics, but to me personally, it feels a little dark and hard to see, but it gets the job done. What I do like, however, is the actual insert of the box itself. It fits all of the cards fully sleeved. The only thing I had to change was I cut the bottom of the tray so that it wouldn't bend my sleeves, but other than that, it fits all the tokens and the cards sleeved, and it's great. Strangely enough, the insert kind of protrudes from the bottom half of the box. Thankfully, when I close the box, it closes flush, so no biggie. The token bag, the tiles, the board, and the components are really good quality. I like them, and the art on the cards, fantastic. Nothing to complain about here. The rulebook was actually really well made. I like the art in it, but what it really focuses mainly on is just to teach you the ropes and how to play the game, and it does a really good job of showing you all of the modes available. The same could be said about the scenario book. It just does exactly what it sets out to do. The first half focuses entirely on the PvP modes and some solo and co-op modes. The second half of the book focuses on all the campaign scenarios that you're going to embark on. It gives you all the setup and everything you need to know to start playing. Ascension Tactics is a really simple game to learn how to play, and that's thanks to a really well-made rulebook. In my opinion, it taught me everything I needed to know, and it was really easy to understand. I got into it fairly quickly. It also really helped me that I'm familiar with deck builders, so if you're familiar with deck builders, you're going to be able to understand a big majority of how this game plays. But what this game does do different is how you actually use those cards that you are building to play the game itself. During your turn, you're going to draw a hand of 5 cards, okay? And just like every deck building game, you're going to spend money, in this case runes, to purchase cards from the center deck. Okay, and the cost of the card is up on the upper right corner. Or you're going to spend power to be able to activate your heroes. Now this, in my opinion, is where the game really differentiates itself from other deck builders. In this case, when you activate a champion, let's say for example I spend this 2 power, and I will go ahead and activate my champion Naka because she has an activation cost of 2 power. So I will grab her standee and place her on any one of my active portals that belong to my team. From there, you're going to have 2 different options. You're going to be able to move 3 spaces, sometimes more, because sometimes the champion will say you have a +1. Or if there is an enemy, you will automatically fight the enemy. But what's cool about this game is that there's no dice rolling or anything like that. You're going to literally just be going up against the enemy's stats. So the enemy will let you know that they have an attack power of 4 in this example. They have a defense of 4, so you will need to have an attack power of 4 or greater to defeat them. And you'll get some honor points when you do defeat them. And that's it. So what you need to do is just, if you have enough power, go up to a bad guy and fight them. And what's really, really fun and addicting in this game is that when you look at your champion, it'll let you know the power that they have, their attack power, and also their defense. But you could, by spending these runes or the money, purchase cards from the center deck that give you bonuses to your champions, and they're called constructs. And the way you do that, you use them is you place the card or the construct underneath the champion, and the construct will add bonuses. For example, this bonus means that you will get 5 plus 3, 8 attack, and your defense goes from 5 to 3, so you'll have 8 defense. So it makes your champions stronger. And another thing, sometimes they'll have a slay ability. And what the slay ability is, in this case, it says equipped champion has a slay ability when they defeat another villain champion. In this case, she'll be able to draw a card. So all these constructs have different abilities, different ways to build your champions, different ways to make them work. And it really adds a layer of depth, excitement. It's kind of really addicting too, because another cool thing about this is you can have multiple different constructs. There's no limit. You can have 10 constructs equipped and be an absolute machine. The only I've never seen that happen, but I mean, it could. There's not a limit. The only thing is, if your champion would ever be defeated, you would lose all of your constructs, and you would have to build up the constructs again. But other than that, that is such a fun gameplay mechanic, and it really sets this game apart from other deck builders. So the ultimate objective of the game, other than building up your deck to have stronger cards, stronger constructs, make your champions stronger, and just better overall cards in your hand, is to defeat champions, get honor points by defeating villain champions, and make your way to these shrines. And what these shrines do is, when you are honor adjacent to those shrines, you will get 2 honor points at the end of your turn for every shrine you control. And you control shrines by having the most of your champions honor adjacent to any of the available shrines. So if I had two champions here and 1 enemy, I would have control of that, so I would earn 2 honor points for that. And if I had 1 champion here, I would earn 2 honor points for controlling this shrine right here. And the objective of the game is to get 40 points. Usually it's 40 honor points, okay? But there are differences, and the scenario does change things up. I'll get into that later. But that is basically and practically the objective of the game and how to win. It's whoever gets 40 victory points or honor points first. So at the end of your turn, after you've already added the points for the shrines that you control, it'll be the actual enemy's turn, the opposing team's turn. And it's very simple. You're going to grab an AI card, and you're going to read it. And it's very simple. You're just going to follow what it says. It'll tell you which one to activate. And the way you know how to activate which enemy is because each enemy card, in this case, will have a token on their card letting you know which enemy needs to be activated. You activate that enemy by bringing them to the portal and doing the same movement that you have. 3 movement, unless something is stated on their card differently, it's always going to be 3 movement. Okay? And they're going to make their way. In this case, she would make her way to an objective. But it's so simple because they're either going to act one of 2 ways. They're going to get to the objective that's assigned to them, to the closest objective that's assigned to them, or to the closest champion that they could defeat with the highest defense. That's it. It's kind of very similar to what a normal person would probably do. You're getting near to me, I'm gonna try to defeat you, or I'm gonna try to take over the shrine. It's very simple and it works. And in the middle here, there's a number. If you have 8 cards in your discard pile, you get to activate another ability. Once that's done, you go ahead and draw a second AI card. And you rinse and repeat. Do the same. Whatever it states here, you're going to do it. If you have 8 or more cards in the AI's discard pile, you're going to do the second ability. Once you've finished doing 2 cards for the enemy AI, you place those cards in a discard pile and you check, all right, how many shrines does the enemy control? And they'll get 2 honor points for every shrine they control. Rinse and repeat. That's how you play Ascension Tactics. Very simple, very straightforward, but there is a lot of strategy and a lot of tactics involved in it. Now, there are other things I could get into, like after you activate a champion, they're done taking their turn, you exhaust them by turning them to the side, or if you're defeated, whether it's on your turn or not, you exhaust your champion, you would take them out of the board. Any constructs they have, they would be removed, and you won't be able to ready them until the end of your next turn. So there's a lot of little intricacies that I'm not really going to get into because I want to get into how I felt about the game. Also, if you ever run out of AI deck cards, you also lose. So with that out of the way, let's get right into the pros and the cons. Ascension Tactics has a lot of variety in their scenarios. I'm going to be honest, at first I got really scared. I'm going to show you why. Because when I first got the game and I opened the scenario book, the first half of the book are PvP and solo and co-op missions, right? However, there were only like 2 co-op missions and 1 solo game. And I freaked out. I was like, oh no, I got a game that it says solo on the box, but they gave me a bare minimum. But thankfully, the second half of the book is where the campaign actually begins, and there's plenty of scenarios that you could take on solo. I was so happy when I saw that, because the opposite of that was me feeling really bad, but it turned out to be all right at the end. But I love the variety because apart from the map actually changing on the board, and maybe what happens if you land on, for example, forest, or you land on certain tiles, different things can happen to you. Enemies react differently, do different things, have different abilities. It's not stale in the way that, okay, here's another map, just run to the shrine and score some points, or slay an enemy, run to the shrine and score some more points. No, you do have to think about what you are going to do, because maybe an enemy will be moving around sporadically in a way that you hadn't seen before. It happened to me, and it was making me feel like, oh man, what am I going to do now? But that's what I do like about the actual scenario book. And another thing I want to talk about, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to find one here because I'm just trying to do this off the cuff here. But there's what's called surges that can happen. Oh, right here, I'll say it. There's scenarios that'll have a boss surge. Now, what that means is when you draw an AI card or a card that has surge, or a boss has surge, like this, for example. Okay, you'll do whatever the surge tells you in both the book and the actual enemy. So you'll do the surge that the enemy tells you to do on the enemy card, and then do the surge that the scenario book tells you. And it really does keep you on your toes. It really has you thinking about, especially if you know what the enemy does, how you can avoid, or how you could help survive whatever surge may come next. And it really changes the way you move around on the map as well. Another thing that I really like, and I'm going to keep this one very vague and short due to spoilers, is the progression that can actually happen with your champions between scenarios. That's as much as I'm going to say. I wasn't expecting that. Yes, it seems like it could be highly replayable depending on which faction or which team you choose. And just, I liked it. I liked it a lot, and it was there the entire campaign. I loved it. Very good progression. Moving on. Another thing that I really enjoyed, every champion feels and plays differently. I'm not going to go over all of them. I'll put a quick little picture right now in front of you so you see just how many champions exist. there's a lot. And they all play differently. They feel good. But what I really want to mention is this deck building and how you activate these champions and how you move them around the board, how you manipulate their movement, how you do their attacks, how you set off their abilities, how there's synergies between the champions and the different cards that you get, the constructs that add a strength and abilities and bonuses to your champions. It is sublime. It is addicting. I loved it so much. I really, really liked it. Now, I kind of went into this game blind. I didn't expect that. I don't know if I was being basically I was caught off guard. I don't know how else to explain it other than I feel that I was caught off guard. I didn't expect that gameplay loop. Purchasing, activating your champions, moving them around the board, getting the shrines to get the honor, fighting. Oh, it was really, really addicting. Awesome gameplay loop. I enjoyed it. And the fact that, how I mentioned, the scenarios are all different, I never felt like, oh, here we go again. Yeah, similar situations at times. It's all about honor points, right? But it goes with the story. But it's just that gameplay loop. It was so good. And with that gameplay loop, I'm going to have to mention that scenario book again because there are multiple paths that you can take. Well, there's several paths that you can take, and it genuinely feels like they're different. There was something that happened pretty early on that right away I was like, ooh. I was like, maybe if I would have known that. I don't know. It's just so cool. I really enjoy that. One other thing I want to talk about is the solo plays great. If you're playing solo, I never felt like, oh, I need to be playing two-hand to be able. I mean, you could, but there was enough going on here with the champions that I was able to add here that I never felt like there were some tough scenarios, but I felt that this true solo mode was really well done. I really liked it, and if you're a solo player like myself, and I know I've mentioned this other times with other games that I've really enjoyed, this is a great true solo game. I really did enjoy it. So good. Very, very, very good solo mode. Now, before I move on to the cons, I want to mention one more positive, and it has to do with the actual progression. I don't have it here laid out on the table, but the progression, although very simple, it's effective. That's all I can say. It's effective. I really liked it. I once again, that gameplay loop with the constructs, because you're not just building. It's not like Marvel, Legendary Marvel, where it's like, okay, I have 8 attack now. No, this is different. It feels different. The constructs add a layer to this game that's just, I love those constructs. It was great. It was great. Other things too, but the constructs really stand out as it was a blast. The abilities too that the champions had. Sometimes there'll be like an ambush card that comes out that'll be in your favor, and the ability on that ambush will be so good. It's just, it gives you like a tingly sensation, like, oh yeah, this is so great right now. This is exactly what I needed right when I needed it. Oh, it's just, the game. I just needed to say that gameplay loop. I needed to repeat it. It's awesome. But I do need to go to some cons. I'm going to be honest with you. This was one of those games that was hard to find a con because after several games, I kept playing it and saying and telling myself, I'm having a good time. This game's going to be a difficult game to talk about when it comes to cons. But there was one thing that really did stand out to me, and it has to do with the cultist. Now, just like champions, you could summon up to 4 cultists, right? And it's fine for me, for example, because I have I could have 4 extra standees if I don't have more champions around. But I found myself in a situation where the AI was summoning a lot of cultists, and I ran out of the villains standees, and I felt that this game could have added at least 4 more standees of each color, I would say, to kind of make up for that. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, and I didn't find myself calling cultists all too often. I did call some cultists. They're kind of very flimsy, but they could be effective if you want to kind of overwhelm the opposition and go to different shrines to try to get some easy points in there, or try to at least. These guys were really good for that. Once again, I didn't use them often, but I feel that they could have added several more of the standees, because there were times that I was like, well, I would like to add a cultist, and I would just use a different color standee. And once again, it didn't happen often, but when it came up, it felt like a bummer. I was like, come on, they could have added a couple more. I mean, I would have paid another dollar or two to have a few more standees thrown in there, but that's a bummer. And the only other con that I could really think about is the setup time and the teardown time, because if you look on the board, all these tiles, they're actual tiles, like the forest, and right here I have some treasure boxes, the portals, the enemies, the enemies objective tokens. It is actually more than what it seems, because you have to follow the scenario book. Every scenario book is going to have you set up this board differently, and it's cool that the scenario book, because of that, could do a whole bunch of different types of maps on the board, right? But it could add to, it's obvious that it's going to add to the setup time, and it's going to add to the teardown time. Now, me personally, I'm a really, really patient guy. When I'm enjoying something, like I really enjoy this hobby, so because I enjoy it, I just embrace it and just have fun with it. It doesn't bother me. I make sure I have enough time to play the game. But setup and teardown may be an issue for you, because there is a lot that you have to put away when it comes to the tokens, the cards. But the good thing is, the way I have the actual insert, the way I did it, I organized it in a way that the cards really aren't a big deal for me at all. It's probably shuffling, and I'll show. There's 2 of these stacks. I put them side by side. These are the center stack. It's shuffling the center stack, which is probably the most difficult thing for me to do, because there's just so many cards. But other than that, I mean, I really struggled with finding a con, and that could just speak volumes of how much fun this game is. I think it's a very well-made game. And since I actually touched on the topic of the insert, once again, I know I mentioned it earlier, but the insert was really well done. I like the way it holds the tokens and everything. It really does help with the setup and teardown as well. And finally, I just want to touch on the PvP. Yes, I did play it. Yes, it's awesome. Obviously, the person has to get into it just the way you get into the game, but PvP rocks as well. I'm just so glad that the solo made it, because I played the PvP. I can tell just how well the solo mode was done in this game. So if you couldn't tell, in closing, I want to let you know that Ascension Tactics is a great game. For me personally, another game that I played this year that just it rocks. And it's really simple. It's a different way of playing and controlling a deck builder. It's so different compared to the other deck builders that I've played. If you played the DC deck building game, the Legendary Marvel, this is a completely different beast. There's much more involved in this game. And it is very rock solid. I loved it. Great deck building, and I'm going to say it again. Man, those constructs, icing on the cake. I want to talk about that strategy. Fantastic strategy. The way that the AI moves, although simplistic, highly effective, keeps you engaged, engrossed, and entertained the whole way through. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but wow, you really are in it. Time flies by when I play this game. It takes about 45 minutes maybe to play a game, maybe an hour. I don't even know what the box says. It could have probably been longer, but I think it's about an hour. But that hour would fly by every single time. Great stuff. Great stuff. The mechanics, great mechanics, and that gameplay loop is absolutely addicting. I cannot emphasize that enough. The gameplay loop in this game is there are no words I can put together to describe just how awesome this gameplay loop is. One of my favorite gameplay loops, and I've had a lot of favorite ones, but this is a great gameplay loop. Loved it. Unfortunately, with those standees, I could have been done a lot better. I wish they could have added a few more of these standees. And the setup time and teardown time can be a beast. It's something you really gotta be mentally ready for. It's not really that bad because of the insert, in my opinion. I just know that compared to other games that I have played, it could feel like a lot. But the good thing is that once it's there, the game gets going, and I feel like I was placed on a zen state of board gaming, and I enjoyed every single second that I was sitting in front of this table playing this board game. Ascension Tactics is a must-buy, must-own board game. If you're a solo player like me, do yourself a favor, find out how to play this game, and do it. You won't regret it. You will not regret it. You will love it. You will love it. Even the PvP is awesome. But if you're into true solo games or co-op games as well, this game is an absolute must-buy, must-play. This was Solo Board Gaming Night. Thank you so much for spending time with me, and I hope you all have a great game night. Take care.